Okay, so in this video, I'm going to look at communicable diseases and focus on your immune response. So, the first thing to think about is whether it's a non-specific immune response or a specific immune response. So important things to note is we need to protect against any pathogens from getting into our body and then circulating in our transport system. So to prevent any pathogens from getting in, we have some key places that act as barriers. So the first place obviously is the outer layer of your skin is a physical barrier. It has glands in it which are going to secrete acidic conditions. Now remember, acidic conditions, we're therefore decreasing the pH. So if we're changing the pH, we're going to affect the proteins and how they function. So by having the surface very acidic, it slows down the process of those pathogens being able to attack our body. So that's the first way in which we can have a non-specific immune response. Now the next way is what happens if we actually damage our cells or we damage inside. So the next part is called blood clotting. If there is any type of damage, whether that's your tissue or collagen that's been exposed, that's going to cause a clotting response from your platelets. Now this is a coordinated response because you don't want to have your blood clotting at the wrong points, because if your blood clots, it therefore creates a blockage and stops your nutrients and the oxygen from being able to be transported to the places where it needs to go. So it's important that this clotting process is only done when it is required. So to do that, what you have is you have in your bloodstream a soluble fibrinogen. Now, soluble fibrinogen is a protein that has been made which is inactive. So the fibrinogen is an inactive form that needs to be converted into the active form called fibrin. So this conversion from this inactive form to active form is a form of regulation of the genes at the post-translational level. The fibrinogen, that inactive form, it's already been translated, it's just not activated until post-translation when it is signaled that it is needed to do so. Now, the minute it gets converted into this insoluble fibrin, this mesh of fibers actually traps your blood cells. So therefore it's going to trap your erythrocytes, trap your platelets, and form what's known as a clot, therefore preventing the blood from flowing out of the closed circulatory system. So remember, it's a circulatory system that is closed, so we want to maintain that pressure gradient so we can ensure that the blood is transported to where it needs to go. So we need to have this response if there is any damage. Now, obviously preventing that bleeding by producing that clot, when that dries out, that actually produces a scab, and that is there to protect entry from those pathogens. Now, if just by chance something gets into the body, we also can have what's called the inflammatory response, so inflammation. So if you have a localized infection that's detected by cells, which are called mast cells, what they will do is they will carry out the response to try to help prevent further infection and to fight the response as quick as possible. So the first thing they do is they release histamines. Now, histamines are a chemical messenger that is going to go and signal for the body to respond in a specific way. So the first response is arterioles are going to dilate. So what happens is the histamines will bind, causing those arterioles to dilate, and that will cause more blood flow to that area. Now that is what gives a red color. As the skin arterioles are closer to the surface, that becomes more visible. You start to see redness in that area. Not only does it become red, it also becomes swollen. And the reason it becomes swollen is because those histamines signal for the endothelial cells to become more leakage. So there's more leakage that's going to happen at the fenestrations, those gaps, to allow for more tissue fluid to be formed. Basically, we're flushing the area with as much blood flow as possible, creating more tissue fluid. So the minute it leaves the blood capillary and goes in to bathe the tissue, it has formed tissue fluid. So we are flooding the area with as much fluid as possible to basically barricade it in that area. But alongside that, we need something that's going to fight against that pathogen that's come in. So the next thing the mast cells do is they release cytokines. Now, cytokines are another type of chemical messenger, and what that will do is that's going to attract phagocytes to that area. Now, remember, this is localized infection, so this is signaling for the phagocytes to come to the area so that they can fight the pathogen that has entered. The other thing that happens is it also stimulates the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus increases the thermostat inside the body system and therefore starts to increase the body temperature, creating a fever. Now, the reason you want to increase the body temperature is because that's going to slow that pathogen down from being able to replicate and therefore allow the body time to fight the infection before the infection takes over to the point of damaging your tissues.